My name is Stella Gillespie. I'm 29, and I used to think facts were stronger than feelings. Steel beams, load paths, wind loads. My world made sense when everything had a calculation. Then my sister smiled over our father's kitchen table and told him a story about me that wasn't true. And somehow, her story started winning. Dad, Robert, 60, had a minor stroke 6 months ago. The doctor said he was lucky. Quick response time, no major deficits, just little lapses. The kind that make dates slide apart, memories overlap, and confidence crumble. If you've never watched someone you love second guess what they know, it's like hearing a house settle at night, until the groaning never stops. Jennifer, my sister, is 31. When our parents split, she moved with Mom and her new husband. I stayed with Dad. That was the first crack. The second came 3 years later, when Patricia entered the picture, Dad's second wife. Patricia is 58, a real estate attorney who can dismantle a contract with a pencil and a raised eyebrow. Jennifer called her a gold digger at Thanksgiving. I called her kind. 5 years ago, when I graduated with my engineering degree, Dad handed me a key on a cheap keychain and said, "Stability first." It was a downtown one-bedroom condo. Not huge, but solid and mine. Deed in my name, filed, recorded. He kept copies in his home safe because Robert George is the kind of man who labels a label maker. Jennifer didn't get a condo, but Dad paid off her $85,000 in student loans and gave her $20,000 for a car. We called it even. She called it a start. Then came the stroke and real estate brochures, and a new tone in Jennifer's voice, soft, syrupy, and deadly efficient. She started visiting every day at lunchtime, calling it care. Patricia was often at work. I was on site or in the office. Jennifer's freelance schedule had flex. Dad loved the company. He didn't notice the drift. It showed up in tiny places first. "Stella," he said one Sunday, stirring the sauce, "I wish you could come by more often." "I'm here every Sunday," I laughed, kissing his cheek. "And usually Wednesday after work." He frowned. "Jenny showed me a text where you said, 'You're too busy this month.'" I pulled out my phone. No such text. Just our usual thread. Photos of the Mustang we're always promising to restore, reminders about his appointments, silly memes he pretends not to understand. I didn't argue. I told myself, stroke, stress, don't make it worse. That same week at dinner, he murmured, "Jenny's struggling. Maybe it wasn't fair, you getting property while she only got debt relief." "Dad," I said gently, "you paid off her debt and gave her car money." "Right," he said, blinking hard. "Right." The following Sunday, I walked into the dining room and found paperwork spreading like a contagion. Binders on estate planning, tax implications, transfer of deeds, trust management. Jennifer sat next to Dad, fingers lace-locked with his, a smile arranged like a ribbon. "I'm just organizing things," she told me, tilting her head. "With Dad's health, we need clarity. Your condo is still entangled in estate language in some of his files. Super confusing." "It's not entangled," I said. "The deed is mine. Full stop." She blinked, wide and sweet. "But Dad has the paperwork. If he gets confused, things could get messy. A trust I manage would be cleaner, since I'm here every day." A cup clinked at the doorway. Patricia, in a navy blouse that made her look unbothered by gravity, set coffee on the table and took in the binders. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "That's an interesting suggestion, Jennifer," she said, voice calm as a level line. "Let's have our estate counsel review any proposed transfers. No one signs anything today." Jennifer's smile quivered, then settled. "We don't have to involve lawyers in a family matter." "That's exactly when we involve them," Patricia said, just as calm. "And since I am one, I'll make the call." After dinner, when Jennifer left, Dad rubbed his temple. "I just want things simple." "I know," I told him, and meant it. Patricia walked me out to my car, heels knocking rhythm into the driveway. "Document everything," she said under the streetlight. "Every visit, every text, every dollar. Something's off." "I don't want to blow this up," I said. "He's still healing." "We're not blowing it up," she said. "We're building proofs." She glanced back toward the kitchen window where Dad rinsed plates like muscle memory. "And Stella, don't confront Jennifer alone." "Because she bites?" "Because she records," Patricia said. I found a recording app open on her phone last week when she left it on the coffee table. I don't think it was for her true crime podcast. That night I told Evan, my boyfriend, the whole thing. We've been together 2 years. long enough for him to know my tells. He listened without interrupting, then asked, "What exactly would it take to move a deed that isn't his?" "Forgery or fraud," I said. Saying it out loud felt like jamming a finger into a bruise. Or convincing Dad he needs to protect assets by corralling them into a trust. If I'm asleep at the wheel, I wake up with less than I had. "Then we don't sleep," he said, squeezing my hand. "We document." I started small. Time-stamped photos of Sunday dinners, screenshots of my texts. I added a notes app ledger, dates, conversations, anything that felt off. At work, I'm meticulous because lives depend on it. At home, I became meticulous because ours did. But Jennifer was already racing ahead. A week later, I arrived for dinner to find a new face in the living room, a man with a leather portfolio and nervous energy. Not Patricia's colleague. Jennifer introduced him as a friend who helps families simplify assets. "It's just a quick review," she purred, sliding a tabbed folder toward Dad. "With his memory issues, it's safer if I manage the trust. The condo can be nested there. No drama if something happens." "It's my condo," I said. "It doesn't nest anywhere." The man stood, smiling apologies at the air. "Perhaps we should regroup when—" "Yes," Patricia said, materializing from the hallway like due process in heels. "Regroup. After I run a conflict check and review your engagement letter." Her gaze flicked to Jennifer. "Do you have one?" Jennifer's smile cooled. "We don't need to be adversarial. We need to be legal," Patricia said. "There's a difference." The man packed up so fast he forgot his pen. When the door clicked, Jennifer's voice cracked on cue. "I'm trying to help, Stella. I'm here every day. You barely visit." "I'm here twice a week," I said, pulse in my ears. "Every Sunday, every Wednesday, ask the marinara sauce." Dad's eyes went watery. I don't remember." "It's okay," I told him, swallowing the splinter. "It's not your job to referee." Jennifer gathered her binders, threw me a pitying glance, and left perfume in her wake. The house exhaled. Dad went to stack plates. Patricia stayed still, watching me like an engineer reading a stress map. "Don't sign anything," she said quietly, "and don't let her corner you without a witness." I think she's building a narrative," Patricia said, "and I think we should build evidence." On my way out, I passed the side table where Jennifer had been scrolling earlier. Her phone still sat there, screen dark. When I leaned to set down the pen the advisor had forgotten, the phone lit for a pulse. A red dot recording widget, hovering like a live wire. For a second, the whole house sounded like creaking lumber, a structure under load. "Patricia," I called softly, "did you see—" She was already at my shoulder, eyes narrowing. "Oh, Jenny," she whispered, and her voice wasn't surprised at all. "I see you." On the drive home, Evan's text came in. "You good?" I stared at the screen before answering. "Facts are stronger than feelings," I typed, and then backspaced until the sentence disappeared. I tried again. "We're going to need more than marinara and memories." Across the city, the condo key dug into my palm through my pocket. Dad had called it stability. Tonight it felt like a target. And for the first time since the stroke, I let myself say the quiet part out loud. What if Jennifer doesn't just want Dad on her side? What if she wants my home in her hands? I hit send. If you've ever built something that mattered, a bridge, a career, a family, you learn one truth. The cracks never appear overnight. They whisper before they break. And in our family, those whispers had Jennifer's voice. For the next few weeks, I followed Patricia's advice like gospel. Every text from Jennifer, every call with Dad, every visit, time-stamped, saved, documented. I even started keeping a running log in a locked notes folder. Evan helped set up a hidden camera in my condo entryway, just in case. Patricia wasn't idle either. One evening, she invited me over and showed me her version of documentation. Hidden in plain sight, 3 small nanny cams installed for Dad's safety after the stroke. Each one tucked discreetly in a photo frame, a bookshelf, a kitchen clock. I stared at her, half impressed, half shocked. "You've been recording?" Patricia smiled faintly. After Jennifer's third helpful visit ended with missing paperwork, yes. She's been playing a long game, Stella. I just decided to start keeping score. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was architecture. Every piece of Jennifer's manipulation had form, pattern, and intent. And Patricia had the blueprint. A week later, Tuesday at 2 p.m., my phone buzzed while I was at work. "Patricia, get over here, now. Bring your laptop and all the condo documents." No punctuation, no explanation. When I arrived, the air felt charged, like the static before a storm. Dad sat in his recliner, anxious but alert. Jennifer was perched beside him, trying too hard to look calm. Next to Patricia stood a man I didn't recognize, tailored suit, calm eyes, briefcase embossed with gold initials, AR. "Stella," Patricia said smoothly, "this is Anthony Richardson, my colleague. Elder law and financial exploitation. He's here to help Dad clarify some paperwork." Jennifer's face drained. "This is an ambush." "You could call it that," Patricia said mildly. "Or you could call it accountability." She set her laptop on the table, opened a file, and pressed play. What came out of those speakers didn't sound like my sister. It sounded like a stranger wearing her skin. Jennifer's voice, sharp with laughter. "He forgets things constantly now. It's so easy. I just tell him Stella's been too busy living in her free condo to visit. He nods along like a toddler. By Christmas, I'll have that deed. Patricia won't know what hit her." Another clip, Jennifer coaching Dad. "If Stella asks, just tell her she hasn't been around much, okay? You must have mixed up her schedule." Then, the worst one. Jennifer to a man, her supposed advisor. "If he doesn't remember signing, who'll prove anything? I'll forge the signature if I have to. He won't even question it." My stomach lurched. I looked at Dad. His eyes, normally so soft, were wide and wet, hands trembling against his knees. "Jenny," he whispered, "that can't be you." "It's edited," Jennifer cried, panic cracking through her charm. "Patricia's framing me. She hates me." Anthony's tone stayed calm, professional. "The metadata is intact, Ms. Gillespie. These are unedited recordings, time-stamped, with continuous audio. Forgery would be impossible without detectable tampering." Patricia leaned forward, voice steady. "I didn't want to believe it either. That's why I recorded everything, Jennifer, because gaslighting isn't just lying, it's erasing truth." Jennifer turned to Dad, pleading, "Dad, she's doing this for your money. She's been scheming since the day she married you." Dad's voice trembled, but when he spoke, it was clear. "I married Patricia because she took care of me when no one else did. You used my illness to hurt me." "Dad, no!" "Get out." His voice cracked, but the command was unmistakable. "Get out of my house, Jennifer." Jennifer froze. "You're choosing her over your own daughter?" "I'm choosing the truth," he said. Patricia clicked her laptop shut. The silence after that sound felt final. Jennifer stood, shaking. "This isn't over. You'll all regret this." Anthony looked her dead in the eye. "If you contact your father again or attempt to access his financial records, we'll proceed with criminal charges. You're lucky we're giving you a choice." "Choice," she spat. "You're threatening me." "No," Patricia said softly. "We're protecting him." Jennifer grabbed her bag and stormed out. The front door slammed so hard the walls trembled. For a moment, the only sound was Dad's uneven breathing. He turned to me, tears streaking down his face. "Stella, I'm so sorry. I thought she was helping. It's not your fault," I whispered, holding his shaking hands. "You were just trying to believe the best in her." Patricia handed me a small flash drive. "Backup copies," she said. "Keep them safe. I'll handle the restraining order." That night, Evan came over. I sat at the kitchen counter, replaying the recordings until the words stopped making sense. He listened quietly, jaw tight. "You know what this means, right?" "That she's done?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, that she's cornered. Cornered people don't quit. They double down." He was right. The next morning, Jennifer posted on Facebook, "My father is being manipulated by his greedy second wife and my jealous sister. They're stealing everything. Please keep us in your prayers." 1,000 sympathetic comments flooded in within hours. Photos of Dad looking frail, ones only Jennifer had. A caption that read, "This is what financial abuse looks like. Families should protect, not exploit." I felt sick. Patricia didn't respond online. She simply forwarded the post to Anthony Richardson with the caption, "Add defamation and elder harassment to the file." Then she turned to me and said, with calm I didn't understand yet, "Let her have her stage. She doesn't realize the curtain's already coming down." That was the moment I realized. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was war, and Patricia had been planning for it long before I even knew it started. The next few days felt unreal, like living inside a courtroom transcript that hadn't been typed yet. Jennifer's Facebook posts spread faster than I could blink. Distant relatives, old classmates, even people from church shared it with captions like, "So heartbreaking," and prayers for her father. Each one felt like a little knife. Dad didn't have social media, thank God, but some of his friends did. They started calling, confused and concerned. Patricia handled it the way only a seasoned attorney could: calm, precise, lethal. She sent cease and desist letters to Jennifer, to the post-host platforms, even to her landlord, who, it turned out, was also one of Patricia's professional contacts. Within 48 hours, the post vanished. By the weekend, Jennifer's landlord had received a drive of select recordings and promptly informed her that her lease would not be renewed. "Let the truth do the talking," Patricia said when I asked if that was revenge. "I'm just making sure the people she lies to actually hear her." Meanwhile, Dad's improvements surprised everyone, including his doctors. His memory grew sharper now that the daily gaslighting was gone. He could remember dates, names, conversations again. One morning while I was making breakfast, he said, "It's strange, Stella. The more peace there is in this house, the clearer everything feels." I smiled. Maybe your mind just needed quiet. But Patricia, sipping her coffee, added softly, "And the absence of manipulation. Cognitive confusion feeds on stress." She was right. Therapy helped too. She found him a specialist for elder abuse trauma. Dad went reluctantly at first, but came home one day with tears in his eyes and told me, "The doctor said confusion isn't always illness. Sometimes it's trust, breaking down." That hit me harder than I expected. 3 weeks later, we learned just how deep Jennifer's deceit went. The district attorney's office contacted Patricia after reviewing the evidence. They were investigating a pattern of small, suspicious transactions from Dad's accounts over the last year. Little withdrawals, $200 here, $350 there, always labeled as errands, as groceries, help. The total came to nearly $15,000. Then came the Amazon charges, deliveries to Jennifer's address, using Dad's card. And an even more chilling discovery: she'd tried to add herself to one of his investment accounts. The bank had flagged it as suspicious and denied the request. Dad's face when we told him, I'll never forget it. He just sat there, hands trembling on the kitchen table, whispering, "I would have helped her. If she'd just asked, I would have helped her." Patricia laid a hand on his arm. "Robert, she wasn't asking. She was taking." He nodded slowly, a man relearning the boundaries of love and betrayal. Meanwhile, life outside the storm began to breathe again. I moved back to Dad's house for a while, helping him through therapy and helping Patricia organize evidence for the DA. When the tension lifted, Patricia suggested something unexpected. "Let's restore that 1969 Mustang of his," she said. "You two need a project that's not about loss." Dad's eyes lit up. "You mean the one that hasn't moved since 2005? "That's the one," she said, smiling. And so, on weekends, we worked in the garage. I scrubbed chrome. Dad cleaned the carburetor. The grease under my fingernails felt better than anxiety ever had. Sometimes, Patricia brought lemonade and sat nearby, reading case files. Every bolt we tightened felt like a small piece of our family being reassembled. But peace is never complete when the storm still circles. One afternoon, Evan called while I was in the garage. "Babe," he said, "you might want to see this." He sent a screenshot. A Reddit thread full of strangers debating whether my father's gold digger wife and jealous daughter had exploited a sick old man. The original poster? Lena, Evan's ex. Her account shared screenshots Jennifer had clearly given her, photos of Dad in the hospital, taken months earlier. The caption read, "Some people will weaponize family just to get property. Watch your back." I froze. Evan's voice came through the line. "I didn't even know they talked." My jaw clenched. "They don't. Not unless Jennifer's still feeding her lies." Patricia's reaction was surgical. She printed the screenshots, labeled timestamps, and handed them to Anthony Richardson. "This will help the DA," she said. "It proves Jennifer's ongoing campaign." By that evening, Patricia's team had added cyber harassment to the pending list of charges. Lena deleted her post 2 hours later, but not before hundreds had seen it. Evan felt sick. "I should have warned you," he said quietly. "She's always needed attention. Jennifer probably promised her drama." I smiled sadly. "She just gave us more proof, not less." That night, Dad joined us in the living room, his voice soft. "I don't understand why she hates you so much, Stella." "It's not hate," Patricia said, resting a hand on his shoulder. "It's entitlement. And when entitlement meets consequences, it calls it betrayal." Weeks passed. The DA's office built their case brick by brick. Jennifer was officially under investigation for elder financial abuse and attempted fraud. A restraining order barred her from coming within 500 feet of Dad, Patricia, or me. She still tried. A few calls, blocked numbers, emails from fake accounts claiming to be family friends. Every message went straight to evidence. The night we finally installed the new security system, Dad said, half joking, "We're a fortress now." I smiled. "Yeah, except this fortress has cameras, lawyers, and lemon cookies." He laughed, a sound that had been gone for months. Still, sometimes I caught him staring at the window after dark. "Do you think she'll ever stop?" he asked once. Patricia sighed. "Not until she learns the difference between wanting something and being owed it." And I added quietly, "Or until she realizes we're not afraid anymore." For the first time since this nightmare began, it was true. Jennifer could smear, scheme, or shout, but we had the receipts, the law, and the truth. And the truth, finally, had teeth. If the first confrontation was a storm, what came next was the aftermath, the kind of quiet that feels like the air before an earthquake. Jennifer was gone from our day-to-day lives, but her shadow lingered in everything. Every ring of Dad's phone made his hand twitch. Every strange car that paused outside the house made Patricia glance toward the window. And then came the legal avalanche. The district attorney's office formally charged Jennifer with elder financial abuse, attempted fraud, and defamation. She was served the papers at her apartment one cold Friday morning. I only knew because she sent me an email minutes later, subject line screaming in all caps. "You did this?" The body of the email was just one sentence. "You and that woman destroyed our family." I didn't reply. Patricia told me to block her, and I did. But blocking someone doesn't silence the echoes in your head. That same week, her lawyer called Anthony Richardson, proposing a plea deal: probation, restitution, and counseling in exchange for a guilty plea. Jennifer refused. She insisted she was innocent, that Patricia had entrapped her, that I was a manipulative daughter turning Dad against his own blood. Her lawyer dropped her within days. When I heard, I wanted to feel relief. Instead, I felt dread. Because if Jennifer had no lawyer, that meant she'd start taking matters into her own hands. And she did. The first violation came a week later. Dad had a checkup at his neurologist's office. I was in the waiting room, scrolling mindlessly through news headlines, when I saw her. Jennifer, standing by the reception desk in a trench coat, pretending to look at brochures. I froze. My heart hammered so loudly I thought the receptionist could hear it. Patricia moved faster than I did. She'd followed us that day precisely because she'd expected something like this. She called security before Jennifer could even look our way. By the time I exhaled, Jennifer was being escorted out, shouting that she just wanted to check on her father. It was pathetic. It was terrifying. It was both. That night, Dad sat at the dinner table in silence. Then, softly, "I keep remembering her as a little girl, running down the hallway, calling me Daddy." Patricia touched his hand. "You're remembering the version of her that loved you back. The woman we saw today isn't her anymore." 2 weeks later came violation 2. I was grocery shopping when someone tapped my shoulder. "Stella," a voice cracked. Jennifer, pale, trembling, makeup streaked like rain. "Please," she whispered, "talk to me. I'm losing everything. Dad won't even take my calls. Tell him I'm sorry." I stepped back, voice shaking. "You're violating a court order." Her eyes widened. "You think I care about your paperwork? He's my father. You can't erase me." Before I could answer, an employee who'd seen the commotion called security again. The police arrived minutes later. Jennifer was arrested right there in the frozen foods aisle. Watching her being handcuffed between bags of peas and ice cream should have felt like closure. Instead, it felt like grief. Grief for what she could have been if she'd chosen honesty over manipulation. The family divide widened after that. Some relatives, mostly from Mom's side, insisted we were being too harsh, that Jennifer was just emotional and deserved another chance. Patricia didn't argue. She simply mailed them a document packet, copies of the fake text messages, screenshots of the forged deed, bank withdrawals, and the transcribed recordings. By the next week, half the relatives stopped speaking altogether. The other half quietly started calling to apologize. I told Patricia, "You didn't just send evidence, you sent an education." She smiled faintly. Ignorance only thrives in silence. Dad was wrestling with his own war. He spent weeks agonizing over one decision: whether to disinherit Jennifer. "She's still my daughter," he said one night, staring at his old wedding photo on the shelf. "I can't erase that." Patricia answered carefully, "You're not erasing her, Robert. You're protecting your legacy from someone who already tried to steal it." He nodded, but I could see the conflict tearing him apart. A few days later, after another long session with his therapist, he made up his mind. He called me and Patricia into the living room. "I'm changing the will," he said quietly. "Jennifer's out. Her share will go to a charity that helps elder abuse victims." He paused, eyes glistening. If this pain can build something good for someone else, then maybe it wasn't for nothing. I hugged him so tightly he had to laugh to breathe. Patricia, voice soft, said, "That's the kind of justice even she can't twist." Around that same time, we learned that Jennifer's ex-boyfriend, Kevin, had come forward voluntarily to the DA. Apparently, he'd heard rumors of her upcoming trial and wanted to clear his conscience. What he revealed turned the entire case. Jennifer had bragged to him about her strategy months earlier. She told him she could get the condo easily once Dad got confused enough. She'd even rehearsed her frail daughter routine in front of him, pretending to be tearful while convincing Dad that I'd abandoned him. Kevin gave a sworn statement and offered text screenshots confirming it all. Patricia looked at me and said, "If this goes to trial, Kevin's testimony will bury her." I didn't answer. I was still processing the surreal idea that my sister had rehearsed deceit like a theater monologue. That night, sitting on the porch with Evan, I stared out at the dark street. He asked, "Do you ever think she'll get better?" I thought about it for a long time. "I think she'll get caught before she gets better," I said finally. "And maybe that's the only way." Evan didn't argue. He just wrapped his arm around me and said, "Then at least she's running out of places to hide." Inside the house, Dad turned off the porch light, locking the door for the night. We'd done everything right. The evidence, the lawyers, the security. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. The law might handle her crimes, but the damage, that would take much longer to rebuild. Still, for the first time, we could finally breathe. Because in the battle between manipulation and truth, the law was on our side now. And Patricia, ever the strategist, was already preparing for the next phase, the trial. The courthouse smelled like old wood and fear. It was early morning when we arrived. Dad in his best gray suit, Patricia calm but sharp-eyed, me gripping the small silver pen she'd given me before we walked in. "Breathe, Stella," she murmured. "Remember, we already won. The truth just needs to be spoken out loud." Still, my heart pounded like I was about to step onto a witness stand of my own life. The trial began on a Tuesday. The first shock came before the gavel even fell. Jennifer had fired her new lawyer. She was representing herself. The judge tried to talk her out of it. "Ms. Gillespie," he said, tone patient, "self-representation in a case of this complexity is unwise." Jennifer straightened, her voice brittle but defiant. "I've been manipulated enough. I'll speak for myself." Patricia leaned over and whispered to me, "She's not defending herself, she's performing." And she was right. Day 1. The prosecution presented the evidence first. The recordings Patricia had collected played over the courtroom speakers. Jennifer laughing about confusing Dad, coaching him to say I hadn't visited, talking about forging my signature. Each clip hit like a hammer. Dad's hands shook, but he didn't look away. I reached for him under the table, and he squeezed my hand so tightly I felt the pulse of his grief. Then came the financial records, the withdrawals, the Amazon charges, the investment account attempt. Jennifer stared ahead, jaw clenched. When the prosecutor finished, there was a stillness that felt heavier than silence. Day 2. The witnesses. Dad testified first. He spoke slowly, carefully, the way a man rebuilds a collapsed bridge plank by plank. "She made me believe things that weren't true," he said, voice trembling. "That my daughter didn't love me, that Patricia was using me. I stopped trusting the people who were actually taking care of me." Jennifer's cross-examination was unbearable. She asked, "Do you even remember half of what you're saying, Dad? You've had a stroke." The courtroom gasped. The judge cut her off instantly. "Ms. Gillespie, one more outburst like that, and I'll hold you in contempt." Dad looked at her for a long moment. "I remember enough to know who hurt me," he said quietly. Patricia testified next. Calm, factual, unflinching. She detailed how she found the recording app, how she legally documented everything, how she coordinated with the DA's office. Then it was my turn. When I walked up to the stand, I could feel Jennifer's stare, cold, furious, familiar. The prosecutor asked me to describe the first moment I suspected something was wrong. I told them about the fake text messages, the family meeting with the lawyer Jennifer brought, the red recording icon on her phone. When I finished, the room was silent. Jennifer's attempt at cross-examining me was chaotic. She accused me of conspiring with Patricia, of lying to steal the condo, even of editing the recordings myself. The judge had to remind her that we were under oath. But the most devastating testimony didn't come from us. It came from Kevin, her ex-boyfriend. He took the stand with visible discomfort, avoiding Jennifer's eyes. "I didn't want to be here," he began. "But I saw things. heard things. He described how Jennifer bragged about manipulating Dad, how she'd practiced being sweet and helpless in the mirror before seeing him, how she promised they'd move into the condo together once she handled her sister. Jennifer tried to interrupt, shouting, "Liar, they paid you!" But Kevin just looked at her sadly. "No one paid me, Jenny. You told me everything yourself." That was the moment I saw it, the first crack in her confidence. Day 3. Jennifer's defense spiraled. She accused everyone of plotting against her. Me, Patricia, Dad, Kevin, even the judge. She claimed Patricia doctored the evidence, that Dad's memories were unreliable, that I was after money. The prosecutor barely needed to respond. They simply played another recording, Jennifer boasting to her friend about gaslighting an old man. When the audio ended, Jennifer's shoulders sagged. For the first time, she looked small. The jury took less than 2 hours to deliberate. When they returned, the foreperson stood and said, "We find the defendant, Jennifer Gillespie, guilty on all counts: elder financial abuse, attempted fraud, and violation of restraining orders." Dad's breath caught. Patricia squeezed my hand. Jennifer froze, then exploded. "You destroyed my life," she screamed, pointing at me. "You'll regret this, Stella. You all will." The bailiff stepped forward. The judge's gavel thundered. "Enough!" She was sentenced to 2 years in prison, with possible parole after 1 year if she completed therapy and made restitution. As she was led away, she turned once more. Not angry now, just empty. For the first time, I didn't feel hatred. I just felt done. The months after the trial were quiet, almost eerily so. Dad's health kept improving. The Mustang restoration neared completion. Patricia organized an appreciation dinner where Dad gave a small speech. "This woman saved our family," he said, voice breaking, "not through blood, but through courage." Everyone stood and clapped. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Evan held my hand under the table and whispered, "Your dad's smile looks real again." I smiled back, because it finally is. 3 months later, a letter arrived. From prison, Jennifer. I stared at it for a long time, the envelope heavy in my hand. Patricia offered to read it first, to filter it for me, but I shook my head. No, I don't need to know what she says anymore. I dropped it, unopened, into a drawer. Because some doors, once closed, aren't meant to reopen. Summer came, and the Mustang was finally ready. Dad and I stood in the driveway, sunlight glinting off the freshly polished chrome. "Want to take her out?" he asked, keys in hand. I smiled. "Only if you drive first." As we rolled down the coastal road, windows open, wind in our faces, I realized something. You can't rebuild trust overnight, but you can rebuild peace. 1 bolt, 1 mile, 1 honest moment at a time. I looked over at Dad, eyes soft and proud. At Patricia in the rearview mirror, smiling quietly from the back seat. For the first time in years, our family felt whole, not perfect, but honest. The sky stretched wide and clear ahead of us, and behind us the storm was finally over.